CIA uses animals to spy. I knew it, bro. I knew those motherfuckers was using some shit. That's crazy. Yo, there's a big conspiracy in New York that the pigeons in New York, right? They be used as spies or some shit, right? Like they be looking at us, right? Cause these motherfuckers be the weirdest shit in the world.
This pigeon is a CIA spy. It's wearing a tiny high-tech camera, and it's about to gather intelligence on Soviet nuclear sub.
That's some bullshit. They be doing that in New York, yo. They be out here patrolling the block, trying to catch them motherfuckers in the deli, bro. The deli patrollers.
Marines. This is a dolphin. Right now, it's being trained to carry bombs and attach them to enemy vessels, possibly miniaturized nuclear bombs. This raven isn't just flying around. It's on a mission. Currently, it's heading towards the hotel room of a KGB agent to plant a bug there. And this cat has been sent to spy on a Chinese diplomat. It had a microphone surgically implanted in its ear, and there's an antenna.
That's fucked up. That's fucked up, bro. How you just gonna go into my man's head and then just put those wires in there, bro? Man, fuck the CIA, bro.
In its tail. This all sounds like science fiction, but animal spies are very real. Their stories have long been shrouded in secrecy, myths, and legends. But in 2019, the CIA released a large trove of previously classified documents. They give us a glimpse into how the CIA tries to weaponize animals. Today, we will look at the 4 most spectacular projects. They reveal a story of Cold War paranoia, unchecked hubris, absurd waste, spectacular failures, and wild ideas that were taken too far.
Yo, when doesn't the CIA take shit too far? They always take shit too far. Fucking gave crack to this. They introduced crack to us, bro. These motherfuckers is fucking reckless.
Most of this video is based on declassified CIA documents. Of course, the CIA wants to present itself in a certain light, and it's careful about what it reveals. Some parts are heavily redacted, and sometimes other sources give conflicting information. We can only present what we know, and if we don't know something, we'll be transparent about it. As always, you can find our sources in the description. Humans weaponize animals to make use.
Wait, let me go close my window real quick. Yo, no funny shit. There's a fucking pigeon outside my window right now, bro. Like watching this type of a video, bro, I'm already onto that motherfucker. The CIA figuring it out.
Of special capabilities they themselves lack. A dog's sense of smell is up to 10,000 times stronger than ours. It's perfect for sniffing out illegal drugs. To cross the Alps and invade Italy, the Carthaginian general Hannibal used war elephants. During World War II, the Polish army deployed a brown bear named Wojciech to the Italian front. In Iraq, the US military worked with dolphins, putting their unparalleled echolocation skills to use detecting underwater mines. And some work with animals is veiled in secrecy. By their nature, it's hard to tell exactly how far these programs have progressed. In 2019, a beluga whale was discovered in Norwegian waters wearing a camera harness. A tag identified it as belonging to St. Petersburg, Russia. It was quickly accused of being a spy. In 2007, Iran apprehended 14 squirrels near a nuclear enrichment plant. The animals were arrested as spies.
How do you arrest an animal? Like, what the fuck do? They put it in like a prison cell or some shit? Like a small little prison cell, whip that little shit? Like, how fucking dare you, bro? Like, what the fuck?
2018, a senior military advisor told journalists that Western nuclear spies have been using lizards to collect information about Iran's nuclear program. Animals have an inherent advantage that human spies lack. People simply don't notice them. Unlike human agents or advanced technology like drones, animals can typically pass undetected, even in secure areas. But there's a problem. Animals are not natural spies. They need training. During the Cold War, the CIA faced a mighty adversary, the Soviet Union. In trying to claim the upper hand, the agency explored all sorts of methods, some of them highly unorthodox: psychedelic drugs, mind control, silent killer weapons, stealing Russian submarines, and, of course, animal agents.
The crow or the raven.
In the mid-1960s, the CIA launched Project Axiolite. The goal was to provide reliable trained avian vehicles for emplacement, transport, and/or recovery of reconnaissance surveillance sensors to meet operational requirements as defined by the sponsors. In other words, the CIA was training birds to transport things like recording devices. But which birds were spy material? There were several candidates, some stronger than others. The cockatoo seemed to be a wild card. One memo states, "We are completely in the dark as to what the possibilities are in regard to this critter." There were high hopes for the hawks. Brandy and GB are two of the program's hawks. They were especially...
You know ravens are one of the smartest animals. Like, they never fucking forget you. Like, when they see your face, like, they remember that fucking face for life. Like, that's crazy. Like an elephant. So if you ever see a raven, don't fuck with it. He gonna remember your ass.
Especially reliable and determined. They could locate specific objects or features in strange territory. They could carry a 13-ounce package for more than a mile. They could even remove objects from a harness they themselves were wearing. But in general, they were not considered strong flyers. Horned owls respond to a high-frequency whistle and can be recalled by trainers, even in extreme low-light situations. But in daylight, their ability to discern objects is much worse than that of other birds. As time progresses, one unlikely candidate stands out: doodah, a raven. We now know that ravens are extremely intelligent birds. They have excellent memories, can plan for the future, and are capable of using tools and solving puzzles. Researchers have found that 4-month-old ravens can perform certain cognitive tasks, as well as adult great apes. CIA documents usually stick to dry facts, but doodah was Project Axiolite's superstar. In one memo, an agent dedicates a whole page to the saga of doodah. Project Axiolite began at a Navy facility at San Clemente Island, off the coast of California. There, the CIA tested the strength of various birds. Their task: fly from the island to a boat and back. This might sound easy, but the distance was challenging, and the winds could be strong. Most birds can manage to fly between 50 yards and 1.5 miles. Doodah, meanwhile, flew 3.5 miles. A few months later, he was almost doubling that distance. He was also problem-solving. In every session, he would figure out exactly the right altitude he needed to fly for the unique wind conditions. Aggressive native birds posed a major threat to the CIA trainees. Wild gulls and ravens soon figured out their training schedule. Once they knew when the CIA birds would show up, they would lie in wait and then attack. But doodah solved this problem too. To avoid the gulls, he'd keep to a higher altitude.
They be catching their ops, bro. That's crazy, yo. Animals be fucking amazing.
And outfly them. The wild ravens were another matter. They would hide behind the bluffs, waiting for an opportunity to attack. Doodah's solution was to engage in brief dogfights with the ravens, while leading them further and further from shore. After about a mile, they would give up and turn back. Ravens' intelligence made them good at more than flying. According to Navy animal trainer Bob Bailey, they could be taught to recognize specific desks, open drawers, and carry heavy objects like file folders. The CIA...
Nah, I'm gonna give me a raven. That's tough. I'm gonna give me a fucking raven.
CIA started training ravens like doodah extensively, and eventually used them in the field. According to the CIA documents, this is how they did it. A CIA agent wants to record a secret conversation between enemy agents. He knows where and when it's taking place, down to the building and the exact room. Now he needs to get a recording device close to the conversation as inconspicuously as possible. To do this, he goes to a nearby building with a view of the targeted location, no more than 300 feet away. With him, he has a trained raven. At the appropriate time, he aims a tiny flashing laser at the window ledge outside the room where the conversation is taking place. Then he releases the raven from its cage. The bird takes a disguised listening device in its beak and flies to the spot indicated by the laser to plant the equipment. The agent then turns on a special desk lamp to signal to the Raven that it's time to return. Later on, the Raven is sent to retrieve the recording device by the same method. At least, this is how it's described in the document, operating.
That's crazy. You know those mini laser shits, right? One fucked up shit people in New York used to do is they used to take those lasers, and when they used to see stray cats, right, they used to like point it at the street and then wait for a car to come, and they'll just, it's one of the most fucked up shit people used to do. To this day, like, whenever I see them lasers, I be traumatized because the amount of cat corpses I've seen on the street is crazy.
Manual avian delivery system. In real life, things didn't go as smoothly. Training a wild animal to be a spy takes time. It takes planning. If the CIA is still training animals today, they're most likely using Udo's all-in-one management software. Udo offers a powerful range of applications that upload images to forever name for it get started. Windowsill. And when a device made it to the right windowsill, the microphone picked up so much ambient noise, the recording was useless. The document suggests that this whole technique was only used a single time, and the attempt seems to have been unsuccessful. Unfortunately, Duda's luck eventually ran out. One day he was attacked by a pair of wild ravens he'd fought many times before. All three birds.
Nah, the ops finally caught him, gang. The ops finally caught my boy, bro. Yo, R.I.P., bro. R.I.P. CIA put an R.I.P. in their fucking documents, gang.
Disappeared from sight, and Duda never returned.
Nah, they slid on my boy and then buried him somewhere, and they never found his body, bro. That's crazy. Yo, R.I.P. to my boy Duda, bro.
He was presumed killed in action. The saga of Duda mourns
he was a soldier.
His loss. He was in a class by himself, writes his trainer. He had a very large bag of tricks and was loved by all. In view of these talents, I suppose I shouldn't have been too surprised when he so quickly became a star on this project. In spite of our deep sense of loss, writes the anonymous agent, we do understand such tragedies are inevitable. Ravens aren't the only birds the CIA used as spies. In secret locations across the United States, Project Axiolite was also busy turning the humblest of birds into covert eyes in the skies.
Yo, fuck pigeons, bro.
It's September 1976. Aerial photographs show the Soviets building nuclear submarines in Leningrad, but the CIA needs more information. Spy planes fly tens of thousands of feet above their target, while satellites are restricted to space. From these distances, it's impossible to take detailed high-resolution photos. Enter pigeons. A pigeon could fly about 100 feet over a target any time, day or night, and regardless of the weather. Most importantly, no one would notice it, and they could clearly be trained. Pigeons are no strangers to war. During World War II, the British National Pigeon Service would drop cases of the birds over occupied Europe.
Well, you telling me I could just go and snatch one of these pigeons from the street and start training them motherfuckers? Yeah, that's wavy.
People would send them back with information about daily life or even military details like troop movements. The key was their unique honing instinct.
Yo, you can't tell me out of the million pigeons in New York City, right? Someone ain't take a pigeon and train it to do some dumbass shit, gang. You can't tell me someone ain't take a pigeon and to do some dumbass shit, bro. Motherfuckers.
Anywhere you release a pigeon, it can find its way back home. Even today, this ability still isn't fully understood. To exploit pigeons' natural talents for aerial photography, the CIA's Office of Research and Development created special 16mm cameras and harnesses for the birds to wear. The harnesses were made of leather and attached to the birds with adjustable Velcro tabs. They were designed to allow the birds full freedom of movement while holding the camera steady during flight. The cameras were lightweight and miniaturized. Each had a small battery-powered motor that advanced the film and cocked the shutter. Each camera had its own timer. When it went off, the camera would take pictures for just a few minutes, resulting in 150 to 220 photos. Together, the camera and harness weighed just 39.5 grams. To produce useful images, pigeons needed to fly directly over their target at exactly the right time, but this could be difficult to arrange. Once they were released, the pigeons would fly back home in a more or less direct line. If the target was located on that line, there was a fairly good chance the pigeons would fly over it. But in covert situations, it wasn't always possible to release pigeons in ideal locations. Some areas were restricted, others were too exposed. To get around this problem, CIA handlers tried to teach the birds ABC flight. Point A is the point of release, point B is the target, and point C is the pigeon's home loft. To begin with, temporary targets a short distance away were established at point B. When they flew to these targets, the pigeons were rewarded. Over time, they were conditioned to expect this reward. Next, the reward at point B was eliminated, but to receive a reward at point C, they had to fly over point B first. And that's how they trained a pigeon to move from A to B to C.
Yo, I ain't gonna lie, I did this with my cat. I taught my cat how to open the door, right? And it ain't those type of doors where you just, like, you know, those flap doors where you just go down like that. It's those, you know, spin type of doors, like the one behind me where you gotta, like, spin the knob, right? Bro, all I did, right, was I took a treat, you know them cat treats with, like, catnips in it, right? And all I would do is take the cat, right, put his hand on the doorknob, right? And then, like, some way, somehow, right, I would, like, clamp his hand onto the doorknob and make him, like, you know, spin that shit open, right? So I would take his treat and I would put it in the other room. So eventually that little motherfucker started jumping, right? I don't know how the fuck he did it. He jumps and he takes his paw and just spins that shit like that, right? And he opens the door just a little bit because it opens that tiny minuscule amount of space, right? Bro, that shit was crazy. I had to stop giving that cat treat because I don't know. That's some crazy shit.
Once the birds were conditioned, they moved on to longer training flights. Inflatable white radums 20 feet in diameter were used as point B. The CIA trained and tested birds in lofts in Oregon, Virginia, Missouri, and Alaska. Alaska, it was noted, shared certain geographical features with areas of interest in the Soviet Union. The training yielded mixed results. Birds were often lost along the way. Some birds simply flew away. Some were killed by wild birds. On the longer training flights, many birds flew too low along freeways and were hit by cars.
People are assholes, bro. They just be hitting them shits for the fuck of it.
Sometimes disappeared while wearing the special equipment that had been developed for them. Losses were time-consuming and expensive. Each time a bird was lost, a new one had to be purchased and trained. Some of the photos taken were very high quality. Some missed the target entirely. Even when the birds were fully trained, they could be relied on to complete their ABC mission only about 1 out of 4 times. A C flight still held potential, though. If the release point was chosen carefully, with the target area between it and the home loft, CIA analysts felt there was a high probability the birds would fly over the intended target and obtain the high-resolution photos required.
No, but on some real shit, imagine being the trainers, like being like working for the CIA, and your job is just to train these stupid ass birds using treats and shit, and you just experimenting, bro. That shit is fire, though, right? Like, you ain't really doing much. Like, it sounds so complicated till you realize it's just a bunch of bullshit, right? Like, all you really do is put a camera on these little motherfuckers, right? Take treats, put them at certain location, and try to make them have like some sense of like, find a pattern in their heads that, like, if I do this, I'm gonna get a treat. So all they have to do is find an easier way to, like, spy on motherfuckers.
So the CIA knows that the Soviets are building nuclear submarines in the Admiralty and Sudomex shipyards in Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg, and it needs high-resolution photos. Time for the pigeons to shine. An agent will have to release the pigeons with the shipyards between himself and the pigeon's home loft. To do this without being detected will require clandestine release techniques. The documents mention 3 that are considered as options. One is releasing the birds from underneath a large overcoat. The second option is briefcases and shopping bags with trick bottoms. The third option is this Volkswagen Beetle. A hole is cut in the floor. When the car is parked, pigeons are released through the hole. They waddle out from underneath the car and immediately take flight. The operation is to go ahead by August 1978, but here are the
Nah, that's just straight paranoia. That shit just gonna have you paranoid, bro. Every time I see a pigeon, I'm gonna be looking at that motherfucker. Like, fuck you looking at, bro.
trail goes cold. It's unclear whether the operation actually ever happened. The documents don't say.
Dolphins.
While the CIA's birds may have gathered invaluable aerial photo insights, other agents were being trained to sabotage enemy ships. This
Did y'all know dolphins are just straight up dickheads? Like that's all they are. Like they're well aware of the dickhead shit they do. They just like being dickheads. Like when they play around with fishes and shit, they will flip them up in the air, do shit like that. If they see like say like a human woman, right? Like like they would like, touch things, touch things on the woman, right? Do things to the woman, right? That's very unacceptable. But like they know and they still do it, bro. And like dolphins are just straight up fucking assholes, bro. But they're smart as shit. I guess the higher the intelligence, the more fucked up shit you do. You know what I mean? I guess as a human, we can pretty much agree about with that.
is James W. Fitzgerald. He's an engineer and physicist. It's 1964, and Fitzgerald has been thinking about dolphins a lot. At a cocktail party, he mentions that he believes the animals could be used in warfare. The person he's talking to happens to be an admiral in the US Navy. He's intrigued enough to introduce Fitzgerald to someone from the CIA.
That's some bullshit, bro. I could do the same shit, bro. I could be like, yo, we could use shrimps. Like on some real shit. Let's just use shrimps. Let's put a mic inside a shrimp. And when that motherfucker eats that shrimp, right? We're gonna be inside him. We're gonna hear everything perfectly, bro. Like imagine just going up to a motherfucker like, yo, let's just use dolphins to be like, oh my god, you so smart, bro. But like, get the fuck out of here, bro.
Around the same time, the TV show Flipper debuts. It's about a crime-fighting dolphin in a marine reserve in the Florida Keys. Like most dolphins, Flipper is smart and friendly to humans, and he responds well to commands. We'll never know whether Fitzgerald and the CIA were inspired by Flipper, but it is plausible. According to the Washington Post, at this point, the CIA sends Fitzgerald to Florida, where he establishes a small laboratory. The same year, the CIA begins its dolphin program, Project Oxygas. The aim of Project Oxygas is to show that dolphins can be used in attacks against enemy ships. To this end, harnesses and nose cones are created to allow the dolphins to carry items. Someone in the CIA even produces this drawing. The dolphins are happily towing the explosive devices given to them by their handlers on top of the submarine. The program quickly passes its first test. It demonstrates that a dolphin can place a simulated explosive device against the propeller of a
Yeah, that's fucking crazy, bro. Dolphins are assholes, bro.
PT boat anchored in the open sea. In November 1964, the deputy assistant
But on some real shit, I just hope they didn't blow it up with the dolphin. You know what I mean? That'd be real fucked up. Like got the dolphin doing kamikaze. Don't even know why it's doing kamikaze. That would be just fucked up. But to be honest with you, CIA has done worse.
director of the Office of Research and Development writes that Project Oxygas has progressed more rapidly than we anticipated. It's unclear exactly what sort of simulated explosives these dolphins were carrying. The sentence that specifies this is partly redacted. The CIA probably planned on using conventional explosives, but if this was the case, why the need for secrecy? A 2021 article in Popular Mechanics suggests a haunting possibility. In 1965, miniaturized nuclear weapons might have seemed achievable in the near future. The magnitude of such an idea would certainly explain the need for continued secrecy. The program's first success unlocks other goals. Trainers explore having dolphins place listening devices on enemy nuclear submarines. The hope is that directly attaching the devices will produce high-quality recordings that allow the CIA to better understand how the enemy's subs work. But wild animals are hard to train. One of the dolphins' strengths is how social they are. They're willing to work, especially as they bond with their trainers. But at some point, this becomes a liability. If the dolphins are performing tasks that please their trainers, then in the field, they'll need extra time to bond with agents before they can be considered reliable. There are also questions about whether dolphins can carry out operations over longer distances.
I think another big issue is the fact that dolphins, they're extremely smart and sociable animals to the point where they themselves get depressed. And making them do something like, like manual labor, and like you're forcing them to like constantly, like you're forcing them to do something, they'll probably stress them out. They go crazy. So I don't know how this would really work out for them. Like look at SeaWorld. Even animals like orcas. Orcas are probably the most dominant, most smartest animals in like the ocean, and even they go crazy. They go straight up nuts in like SeaWorld when they're like trained to do shit or like forced to like live in like a certain area all day, all night long type shit. Like orcas never killed anybody in the wild, but as soon as they got like imprisoned in SeaWorld, they started killing trainers. So food for thought type shit.
At some point, the CIA seems to realize its limitations in understanding the dolphin's capabilities, and it contacts the Navy's Office of Naval Research to help. In 1967, the program's focus changed to intelligence gathering. The dolphins were to be trained to travel great distances, at least 12 miles. They would retrieve dead drops, items or information undercover agents had left behind in the water to be picked up. A memo from September 14th that year suggests that oxygas had become a joint program of the CIA and the Department of Defense. The CIA seemed unsure that Project Oxygas would produce actionable results, and the program seemed to be running out of steam. A make-or-break demonstration was scheduled for December. At that time, it would be decided whether Project Oxygas would continue. The demonstration seems to have been a failure. After that time, there are no further mentions of the program in the CIA documents.
That's bullshit. They're still doing that shit. They just be lying out their fucking teeth. Them motherfuckers are still out there. Them fucking pigeons, the dolphins, bro, they still using them shits.
Surviving drawings and photographs gives us an idea of what Project Oxygas might have looked like. Glimpses of Project Kesho are far more rare. But between the redactions, a hazy picture emerges of likely the oddest creature the CIA ever created. This is Acousticitty. Acousticitty is the legendary project of Project Ketchel, the CIA's dog and cat program. Of all the CIA's animal projects, Acousticitty might have been the most controversial and the hardest to corroborate, depending on who you believe. The saga of Acousticitty goes in fundamentally different directions. Here's the CIA story. In 1964, the agency wanted to be able to explore conversations held out in the open. Think two Soviet agents having a conversation in a public park. That required getting close and focusing in on the conversation without attracting attention. The solution is cats, who can often prowl around without people ever noticing them. A microphone is surgically placed inside a cat's ear canal. A transmitter is placed underneath a bunch of loose skin, and an antenna is woven into its fur. The whole procedure is low risk, humane, and minimally invasive. But the cat is still a cat. It can be trained only so far. Eventually it will do what it wants.
Eventually it will do what it wants. Them cats don't give a fuck. They're gonna rip that shit off. They'll rip that shit off right in front of them, agents.
Acousticitty was never deployed in the field, and the listening devices were carefully removed from its body. But Victor Marchetti, who was special assistant to the CIA's deputy director in the 1960s, tells a very different story. Here's his version. It's sometime in the 1960s. The CIA puts a Chinese diplomat in France under surveillance, but their bugs don't just pick up his conversations. They record all the noise in the room, including the squeaking of the couch. Individual voices are inaudible. This is characteristic of the microphones of the day, which tend to record everything around them indiscriminately. The anatomy of ears, on the other hand, allows us to focus on certain sounds and exclude others. This and your brain's auditory processing abilities are why you can have a conversation at a noisy party without being overwhelmed by every sound. When Acousticitty turned its head, it would direct the microphone inside its ear. According to Marchetti, to implant the equipment, they slit the cat open, put batteries in him, wired him up.
Fuck these guys, bro. What you mean you slit him open? That's crazy.
Including putting a power pack in his abdomen.
I ain't jacking that, bro. I ain't jacking this project. It's fucked up, like on some real shit. And the cat ain't even gonna listen. The cat's gonna do what the fucking cat wants to do.
The tail was
you do, like, to be honest with you, I don't even understand why they would use a cat. Like, why not use a dog? Because a dog is way more obedient and you could train it more. Like, it'll actually follow like what you want it to do. But you know, at the end of the day, fuck that, bro. That's crazy.
Used as an antenna, they made a monstrosity. To focus on a single conversation, Acousticitty would need to be trained. His handlers found that hunger or sexual arousal would cause him to simply lose interest and wander off, so they attached wires to his brain to monitor and neutralize those impulses. Marchetti claims the CIA did attempt to use Acousticitty in the field. The cat was then put on a test, sent across the street to eavesdrop on a conversation, being monitored by a van loaded with equipment. and as this poor little monstrosity waddled across the street, a taxi
Why he call him a poor little monstrosity? That's fucked up.
cab came down and ran over it.
Wow. Wow. Ain't no fucking way, bro. They did all that for this motherfucker to get ran over by a car, bro. Ain't no fucking way, bro.
So it was $25 million down the drain.
No way, bro. That's crazy. 25 mil, bro. That's so fucked up. That cat got slit open and then got ran over by a car as soon as it was deployed, bro. That shit was fucking
$25 million
crazy.
was a lot of money then. The CIA disputes all this. On its website, it claims that Marchetti's comments were meant to be a joke, and the unclassified documents are no help. The single document about Acousticity is heavily redacted. The CIA didn't just train and transform animals, it also recreated them. This looks like a dragonfly, but look closer, it's a machine, the Insectothopter. The CIA created this tiny gas-powered listening device back in the 70s. It contains a microphone, and it can flap its wings rapidly and fly just over 600 feet in a minute, guided by a laser beam. A remarkable technical achievement, with some serious limitations. Even a light breeze can throw it off course immediately. It was never used operationally. In a memo, the CIA's Deputy Director of Research and Development
Nothing's been used under an operation. We just did shit, guys. We just did shit. We never really did it. You know what I mean? To all my enemies, we ain't do it. We ain't do it. Fuck out of here.
wrote that unfocused experimentation in the animal programs represented the worst kind of waste in terms of manpower and money. The unclassified documents often suggest that the CIA was simply exploring what animals could do without having any real objective in mind. And the results are somewhat disappointing. Ravens were
Like, one thing I do wonder is that, like, instead of, like, using actual animals, why don't you just build, like, a robotic type of animals that has the same build, right? The same build as, like, a pigeon. Maybe a pigeon would be expensive because you have to, like, do aerial flights or some shit, right? Like, you know, that would probably be, like, the most expensive and hard part about it. But, like, why not just make, like, a robotic, like, cat or some shit? Like try to minimize, like, the robotic sound of its movement, cover it up in fur, you know, try to make it look as real as possible, and just do the same shit, but this time you have control over it with, like, a remote control or some shit, you know what I mean? Like, why actually use a real cat? That shit is crazy.
were trained for years just to be killed by wild birds. Pigeons randomly disappeared with gear worth thousands of dollars, and depending on who you believe, an expensive cyborg cat was at best useless in the field, and at worst immediately hit by a car. The declassified
I don't like the way he talking about my kitty, bro. That cat went through a lot, bro. He ain't deserve all that. He disrespected him.
documents suggest that by the mid-1970s, the animal projects had fizzled out. Despite this disappointment,
Bullshit.
the quest to weaponize animals continues. The United States Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, known as DARPA, has been running programs aimed at controlling insects for espionage. In 2012, a team at MIT announced that it had developed a neural probe that plugged into moths' nervous systems, allowing for their flight to be controlled. Engineers at the University of Washington have implanted moths' antennae into the Smellothopter, a drone that can actually pick up smells. And in 2018, DARPA announced the Persistent Aquatic Living Sensors program. The program explored the possibility of using aquatic creatures as living alarm systems. That includes bioluminescent bacteria, which light up when disturbed by aquatic intruders. Another option was to study the sounds produced by snapping shrimp and Goliath grouper. In the case of the shrimp, disturbances in the audio could even indicate the size and shape of an intruder. It remains to be seen whether DARPA or the CIA can harness the natural world for intelligence purposes, or whether wilderness will remain just that. Maybe someday we'll discover whether any real success stories lie within all those redactions.
We ain't ever gonna find that shit out. Yo, shout out to Fern, bro. This channel, bro. I be watching this channel for hours, like, on some real shit. Like, they be telling you some of the most coolest shit with, like, the best animation, gang. Shout out to them.